Right, stand by. Roll sound.
Speed.
Roll camera.
Speeding.
Slate.
Scene 1, take 1, mark.
And action. Hey everybody, welcome to Burnie's Applebox. And today I usually start the show saying, this is one of my oldest friends. This is, somebody I've known for years. This is somebody I don't know at all. My guest is Jim Nicholas James.
Pleasure to meet you.
Welcome, Jim.
Thank you for having me.
And Jim is an electrician from Great Britain.
Yeah.
And you came over here to kind of come out to Mecca, I guess, LA, Hollywood.
Yeah.
See what the situation was like. You know what I mean? As a smart guy, you're maybe thinking about migrating or taking a look and just knowing you're not working over here. You're on a tourist visa, so you're just talking. Jim called me and said, "Hey, can we get together? I'd like to see your operation and all that." And I said, "I'll do you one better. Why don't you come down and be on the show today, and we'll just talk about what it's like in Great Britain production." And compare it to the U.S. and maybe answer some of your questions too.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
So that's I'm looking forward to it, buddy.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you for coming down.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate
my pleasure.
I appreciate your time. So.
I told him, I said, there's always that Hollywood story that you walk in and somebody discovers you, and I assured him, this is not that. So. Jim, tell me about, first of all, when did you get over here? What was the start of your trip here?
I've been here about just short of a month now, sort of thing. As I say, I'm here as a tourist. I love, it's as much an inquiry on a work front, but also I just love the lifestyle out here in California.
Sure.
I've been out here before, and I'm taking a bit of a break, but I'm seizing every opportunity to maybe just speak to people. I love to hear how it works out here and make that comparison. And also that's kind of relevant because there's so much American work coming to the UK now, sort of thing. So it's almost like that bridge between the two is kind of shortening all the time. So I figure it's just as well to speak to people, find out from people like yourself, and just and see what opportunities or what potential may come from who knows what, either this side or back home, in the future. So
well, I think that you may even know this better than I do from living out in Southern California for a long time, but movies have always been an international business, but now movies are international.
Yes.
I mean, they open in China now.
Yes.
Not here.
Yeah.
Just as with the last, I don't know what film that was that did that, but there was a recent big one. Maybe it was Star Wars. I don't know. I'm not sure of that, but I think it might have been. But, as filmmakers, we go all over the world and do all of that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I think it's very wise to come out here and see that, and just to extrapolate that a little bit, too. I mean, what is London like in filmmaking? It's got to be a behemoth. I mean,
it is, yeah.
leader.
I mean, I started out when I was a student. I lived in London, so I kind of started out there. I wasn't there I was about 4 years, and then I moved back up north, sort of thing. But interestingly, I still go down to London for work. The last job I did at the end of last year was a commercial in London, so I'm down there as much as I am anywhere else in the country. And England's not that big that you can't get from one end to the other in, half a day or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
is it that type? Like if you drove, say, like 4 hours, would you be considerably through the country?
If you didn't hit any sort of delay for whatever reason, you could get from Liverpool to London in 4 hours quite easily.
Oh, that's incredible.
So that's about just over 200 miles you're talking about traveling. So it's not unreasonable to go up and down the country, anywhere from Scotland, Glasgow and Edinburgh, all the way down to Plymouth and Cornwall and places, further south of London. So that's kind of how it is, and you find that you're not kind of pigeonholed to one area. You can go wherever the work is.
You can really work, maybe if you get a room or something like that.
Yeah, that's it. So
grab a week.
I was on a job just last year for about 5 months, and it was Cardiff, South Wales sort of thing. So I was down there for that length of time while we shot that drama. So wherever it is, if you're willing to travel, then you can get
work.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
But speaking of London, I mean, it's as no doubt you're aware, there's so much of Hollywood films being shot at the big studios like Pinewood and Shepperton now. It's kind of the interesting thing, how I see it, and I'm sure there won't be many who disagree in the UK, that the industry is kind of reaching saturation point. There's so much work there now. It's not just the homegrown stuff. There's so much coming from other countries, the US, that's being shot there, and that's fantastic because it's helping the industry grow. It's getting bigger and better all the time. It's improving the output of, you know, production value and everything.
Sure.
It's having a very positive influence. And that's great. That's fantastic. I mean, I always say to guys when it gets really busy and you're getting 3 or 4 calls that you're turning down for every one that you take, I'd say it's rather that way than the other way, that there's nothing happening, you know. And
go for 3 or 4 days with one phone call as opposed to the opposite.
Exactly. So London's very busy. The way I've seen it, kind of how that has progressed with that, is that it's pushed a lot of stuff. There's still a lot of dramas and commercials shot in London, but it's pushed a lot more stuff up north. So I find being up north in Liverpool and Manchester, there's more and more jobs coming up that way that we're taking advantage of. Not that they weren't busy to begin with, but it's almost like you can't accommodate everything in one area. So what they'll do is they'll find other areas to kind of...
And those will grow. You know, and that's a very interesting point. We did talk on the phone last week, and we talked about that, and I think one of the things I was telling you is I said, you know, in comparison, even though I'm just 50 miles from Hollywood or Los Angeles, I am more like somebody who works in Chicago or St. Louis or Denver. You know, I'm doing corporate, industrial, I'm doing commercials, infomercials, you know, people who come from out of town to this area to shoot. I'm picking a lot of those jobs up in LA, Orange County, and San Diego. And it's somewhat of the same thing we were talking about. You said, now you're from Liverpool, right?
I grew up there. I'm originally from the Channel Islands, but my home is Liverpool.
Originally from the Channel Islands?
Yes.
Okay. And like a good American, I have no idea where those are. And then Liverpool, and then you said Manchester, right? Now Manchester, is that a larger city than Liverpool?
It is a bit bigger, yeah. The funny thing is, there's quite a close tie between the two. I mean, there's a lot of rivalries when you talk about sports teams.
I'm sure the football is like major.
So, but it's only 30 miles away, so you know you can get from one to the other if nothing's on the road in half an hour. You know, which is great. Manchester is definitely a hub. It always kind of has been. There's studios there. And recently, within the past several years, they built a massive studio complex called Media City. The BBC and everyone there's a lot of stuff
in Manchester.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
It's an absolutely incredible site that they've built with these studios. It's mostly for television, for broadcast TV. They do all the national news and stuff like that from there. ITV, another big network, they're based there as well. So, so there's a lot happening in that environment, and that's
how big is the city of Manchester, population-wise? Just roughly, you know.
I honestly.
A million? Is it a million?
More.
No,
more. So,
more than a million.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a fairly major market unto itself.
Sure. Yeah. And as I say, it was always kind of busy anyway, but with people seeing investment going on there. It kind of, you know, it's the whole money draws money sort of thing, or brings money, and that's what's happening. You're seeing a lot more companies set up, and as I said, it's not that there is a divide, but it's almost like you see a lot of what's happening in London is let's focus on them big Hollywood jobs. I mean, we've had. Not that I work on them jobs, but we've had a lot of the American companies come over because of it. You've got Warner Brothers have set up, you've got CineLease, you've got MBS have all come over and set up in the UK to accommodate that. And what it's meant is the companies, the lighting and camera companies that were already established have maybe moved out from Pinewood and what have you and are focusing more on the dramas and commercials. But as no doubt you're aware, TV seems to be kind of contending with film right now.
TV is, I think,
it's huge.
It's very hard comparison to make, but this is what I'm seeing with Netflix and what's coming across my street, and what I want to watch. You know, that's the other thing. When I look at the movie listings, and it's just as easy for my wife and I to pop in the car in 5 minutes. We're at a theater, a nice one. You know, and go to a movie. I don't know. I look at Netflix. I'm always finding a little series that I haven't seen yet, or somebody told me about.
Absolutely.
But the movies, you know, unless I'm into Transformers, kind of not so much. You know?
Sure.
You know?
I mean, there is that greater diversity, which is great, and also our access to it. It's not just in terms of how that market is becoming, you know, more condensed, where, you know, as you say, stuff from America is going to the UK and going elsewhere in the world, but also just how we're receiving it, that distribution. I mean, we're getting access to stuff that we wouldn't have been able to see,
Oh
you know,
my
even several years ago.
gosh.
There's so many American TV shows that we now have at our disposal, and without having to pay a high premium for it either. So,
Right,
which is
right.
again kind of drawing you in. And I think for people in the industry, they're seeing that.
They're seeing, you know, this is a philosophy I've had. It's not new and it's factual. I didn't come up with it. People, this has been very obvious for a long time. Media is an international thing. My wife is Turkish. Okay. Now Turkey, and I've been to Istanbul a couple times and talked to people who have studios over there, grip trucks, DPs, directors. You know, I've met a lot of people because I knew them through Facebook to begin with. You know, and went over there. They are a major production place, and they do a lot for the Middle East Middle East, but a lot of countries, you know what I mean, in the surrounding areas also have developed an industry in there, just like in the last 20 years. But in Turkey, there was this one, and this is so funny because my wife and I's like viewing habits are probably like 180, right? You know, what she likes, what I like. And there was this, it was made for Turkish television. You know, it's this love story. I do not remember the name of it. I apologize. But made for television. She loved it. But her American friends were calling her up and saying, "Have you seen this? Have you seen this series?" Because it's subtitled. You know what I mean? And it's really rich. It's really well done. It's a good story. And it was popular with them. It wasn't something we told them about or anything like that. You know, so that, I mean, things are really making big inroads.
Absolutely, and I think as well the whole, you know, the language barrier is kind of being overcome because of that. I mean, there's one thing, it's not something I've had time to look into or know much about, but we keep getting these advertisements for, I think it's a German sort of Netflix equivalent, or, you know, I think it's called Walter. And they've got all these programs, and you're looking and you think, that actually looks quite decent. It looks like the kind of production value you would expect from the US or from the UK or things of that nature. I think a lot of them are still in their native language, so you're going to be looking at shows that have subtitles. But it seems to be advertised more and more. There seems to be more. It's obviously reaching people. It's obviously doing well. And therefore, again, certain barriers are being overcome. And also, I think, with that, not just in terms of as a business putting that product out there, but people being aware it's not just the US, it's not just the UK who make things, you know, sort of thing. We kind of look beyond our own borders.
Very much so.
That's kind of promising. It's quite exciting, really.
It is. And you know what? While anybody from LA is going to be, I mean, we relish the golden years here. You know what I mean? And I really wasn't here during the thick 100 golden years, you know, that they had. But it has moved on. I mean, let's face it, Los Angeles is still probably the production colossus of the world. I think no one would dispute that. However, so much has moved out. But you know what? It had to move out. There is no way you could fill the pipeline right now from one city for the demands of media.
Absolutely,
You know, it's worldwide.
I mean, we see that in the UK, we used to have 5 terrestrial channels. That was it, 5 channels on the TV. And this is only, we're only going back like 10 years or something.
Oh, that recently?
Yeah, if you wanted to watch anything additional, we have like satellite and cable and stuff and things you can subscribe to. But again, it's at that additional cost. Then it went through this digital transition, and all of a sudden, without any extra cost, you just pay your TV license. You've got however many 100 channels available to you. Now, a lot of them were things that were available on Sky and cable and all this, but all of a sudden you're exposed to how many more channels, and you think, well, someone's got to fill that. Someone's got to create content to go on it. So So yeah, when you say about you wouldn't be able to fulfill it, obviously it does need to branch out, to reach out to other areas in order for people to create that content.
Absolutely.
And also create a diverse range of content, because nobody wants to be flicking through the channels and seeing the exact same thing on everything. Everybody's different. Everybody wants to see something different. So
absolutely.
So that's, you know, that's been promising. As you know, the industry it's a business first and foremost. There's no denying that.
Absolutely.
But as a business, that has created a great amount of opportunity for it to grow and to expand, which is fantastic.
And just looking at what China is doing, I mean, it's really like the people that I've talked to that work over there and going, you know, a lot of 3D, a lot of 3D guys got sucked up from LA and they're over in China. And, you know, one of them was telling me, he goes, you know, I spent 9 months in China last year.
Oh, right, okay.
And he goes, all I do is I go to a studio and there's 25 sound stages, big sound stages on the lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I go there, I spend 12 hours, and I go back to my hotel room. He goes, that's what I've done essentially for 9 months.
Oh, wow.
You know,
Okay.
and he goes, it is so busy over there. He goes, every stage is full, and they've sucked up almost everybody that they need worldwide.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, Europe, U.S., all that. And think of what that's going to be like in 10 years.
Exactly,
I mean,
yeah.
10 years, that is going to be the dominant thing.
It is,
you know?
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? There's whether you're looking at the demand for the content or whether you're looking at the advancements in the technology, everything is increasing at this exponential rate.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
half the time, twice the capacities, twice the demand, whatever it is. And that's, you do, as an insider, once you're kind of, you're involved in this industry and you see what's going on day to day, you do kind of look at it, you step back and think, where's it going to stop exactly? Where is this going?
Boy, have I thought, Jim, I tell you what, I've thought of that. My conclusion is, at least looking at the landscape right now, it's not going to stop.
Yeah.
Where does technology end? When do we quit inventing new things?
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Now, I will say this, that I think have gotten to the point, maybe we're getting to the point of where how much do you need to improve the picture?
Yes.
Right now I can see blackheads.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know if I need to see much more.
No, I know what you mean there. Yeah, there is that kind of. Is it actually improving anything, or are we just doing it as it's almost like a technical
Thank you.
experiment because we can do it?
Thank
you know,
you.
and that is a valid point. You know, and I work with what we call old boys. You know, guys who've been doing it before.
The
I was
old
before,
boys,
yeah.
guys my age. Yeah.
So you kind of speak to them, and they will bring a certain grounding to something. You know, you kind of get caught up in all this. Oh, we've got so much of this going on. There's all this new LED technology, using things wirelessly, remotely.
Right.
And they look at it and say, okay, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, and you're achieving something. And it's not to in any way diminish the requirements or the views or what they're trying to achieve, you know, a director of photography or whatever's trying to achieve.
Right.
But at the same time, they look at it and say, we could achieve the exact same, or we're able to achieve the exact same 10, 20 years ago.
Right.
And it was with a fraction of what you have today, you know, in a much simpler capacity. And I think as well, you've got to try and keep that balance where you don't let things get away with you. You don't start getting in. I mean, I have been on some jobs, and you know, as someone who loves what they do, it's great to be able to play around with this new equipment and take your pictures and say, look at this rig we did. It's, you know, and all the rest. You got them kind of bragging rights, but at the same
Grip
time,
rigs, right? Yeah.
and you kind of, I mean, this job I said I worked on last year for 5 months in Cardiff. We had it was like 20 or 24 sky panels built into an array to just make one massive screen underslung from a cherry picker to come through a window for moonlight. This was great. You know, I was on the shooting crew, so I didn't actually get to build this every day, but you come in and you help, you know, DMX it all up and stand there with the desktop and flash it out and everything we need to do with it. But at the same time, that's all great. That's good fun. But it's not like we're achieving anything new. You know, you get these old boys and they say we were doing the exact same 10, 20 years ago.
Right.
And we just
We'd say a 20K into a 20 by farther back.
Exactly.
Diffused, colored, all that.
All that kind of stuff. So in that respect, we're not doing anything new. Is it bringing anything new in terms of the quality, or is it just saying we're just getting caught up in the motions of this is where it's all going?
Yeah. No, I totally. You're dead on exactly. Here's where I see the danger zone. It's not the technology. It's not the new tools and the versatility. The sky panels are an amazing piece of equipment, and KinoFlow is putting out some amazing stuff as well.
Exactly.
You know, that's all good, but it's when the technology starts controlling the story. Now that's where I take exception to it. You know what I mean? And I give you this example, and you already know this. When you're shooting a 3D movie, you're going to shoot something in there because you need a 3D shot.
Yes.
Right? You're going to put something in that story because it's using the technology, not letting the technology
it becomes a gimmick almost, doesn't it?
Exactly.
And that's it. It's
exactly.
just it's another marketing strategy or whatever. And yes,
Exactly.
you're using the advancements in technology in order to get that and get bums on seats in the cinema. And you know,
Right.
but that again, you know, I can see where you're coming from, and there are two sides to everything in the sense that, as I said, primarily, first and foremost, this is a business.
Yeah.
So the people who are putting the money in are going to say, are we doing everything possible to get that return? Do you know what I mean? They have to do things like 3D. They have to do things, other ways of appealing to, you know, your senses and whatever sort of thing to heighten that experience of going to the cinema, because it's an experience, isn't it? You sit in a dark room with strangers and you get sucked into this world for 2 or 3 hours.
Absolutely.
And it washes over you. And the second they're not achieving, and you're what time is this going to finish, or where's this going, or whatever, they've lost you. They haven't hit their mark, and they've spent tens or hundreds of millions on something
to get you there.
Yeah, exactly.
To get you there, and you walked in willing to suspend your belief in reality,
absolutely,
and buy into the story. So if they've lost you after that,
yes,
they've really lost you. And you know, it's technology, and it's good. And we should always be asking, what is the latest? What is the newest? Where is the line now?
Yes.
What can we do and can't do? You know, I think one of the things that I'm sure, I don't know how they would make this statement in Britain, but fix it in post. Right?
Yes,
Yeah. Maybe it's the same. Do they say that?
They say the
Fix it in
exact
post?
same. Yeah.
So, but that is something that I don't really take exception to that. But there's so many things we can do in camera.
Yes.
And there's so many things we can do on set for very little time cost.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That prevents you. But maybe it's a matter of choices. Maybe you haven't made those choices yet, and that's why you want that option to still be there.
Absolutely.
Which is a nice option to have.
To have that versatility to do that is fantastic. It's a luxury. But it's very interesting that you say that, because the few people I've met with while I've been out here so far, I've had the exact same conversations. And we talk about, and I'm not in any way trying to be dismissive towards the industry and the people who are working in it, but there is this kind of problem with we become lazy with the technology. The technology is able to do so much for us that we're not thinking. That whole fix it in post, well, the advances in post-production are incredible now.
Amazing.
You can absolutely mess it up in the camera, and you could probably get something that looks fantastic.
Yes.
You know, when you take it to post-production. That's a great as a kind of get out of jail free card, but it should not be something that you're emphasizing on, and that is at the forefront of your mind. As you'll say, there is so much you should be aiming to try and do on set, in camera, and achieve there. And then post is an add-on, as I say, it's a luxury. Additional.
Exactly. Safety net. Yeah.
Absolutely. But it seems to me that there is almost a lot of craft, a lot of skill that's being lost because of that. And people are almost just, we can bash anything in without thinking about it. You know.
Which will bite you.
Yes.
Which will bite you.
Yeah, it will eventually.
You know what, Jim? We're going to take just a quick little break here, and we'll be right back.
Okay, brilliant.
Hi, I'm Burnie. I own Burnie's Grip and Lighting, San Diego Grip and Lighting, and Los Angeles Grip and Lighting. You know, we pride ourselves on not only renting you the best equipment, but also giving you the best crews. And one of our core values here at Burnie's Grip and Lighting is that we give you the highest production value in the world. And remember, people used to say national, local. No, we present world-class production value on every set. We also know budgets are very tight these days, and you've got 10 hours to get what you need in the can. We move ahead, we move fast, and we know what you need. When you rent from Burnie's Grip and Lighting, you have a partner on your production for that day that is making sure you are well taken care of. So anytime you're in Southern California, give us a call at 714-609-3545, and we'll take very good care of you. See you on set. Hey everybody, we're back here with Jim Nicholas James.
Yes.
And I'm careful with that name because it's a little different for me, and you've got some stories about that, which we'll get to. But first, I would like to hear about you. What got you into the business? Family relations or?
No, actually, none of my family are really in the industry. There is one distant relative, my mom's cousin. He's a stuntman out here in Hollywood.
Okay.
He's had a very impressive career, to say the least. I was drawn to film as a child, as I think a lot of people are, and the reality of being a fan as opposed to an industry professional is something somewhat different. You wake up to that, but I was always kind of admiring him, in awe of what he was working on.
Oh yeah, that had to be fascinating. Have an uncle as a stuntman.
Yeah, exactly.
You're jumping off the roof. I'm just like Uncle.
His dad is. He's passed now, but I remember I used to meet with him, my mum's uncle, and he'd come and tell me these stories. Tim's working on Titanic, Tim's been working on Iron Man, and I was just in awe of it. And he'd show me some clips. I think he drove a car off a bridge for XXX, and
oh my god!
Then he won a Taurus Award for it, and I was like, oh, this is incredible. But I think as well, what I loved about that as I got older and started to mature a bit was that he was doing something he enjoyed doing. He got to go and do something that was fun.
Right.
It was not a job just to pay the bills. It was a job that he just absolutely loved and reveled in, and was going off doing all these fantastic things. And I think that's a very advantageous thing for someone to be able to do something they want to do, because you give more to it, and you push harder, and
anybody who's lucky enough, like we are, to be in this business understands that.
Yeah.
You don't have to do a job that feels like you're doing nothing or you're taking yourself nowhere. You're just earning money.
Sure.
I mean, half of our things, how many times, and I know it's a lot, have you gone home and said, we got to break windows all day today?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or we got to blow up a car today.
Exactly.
Or, I mean, you get these little snippets of life that you would never have otherwise.
Absolutely. I say that to friends all the time. We get to go in these buildings, in these environments that otherwise, and you get to do things that you wouldn't be doing. I go home and you might have, you got to be careful, you can't let it get leaked, but you might have a clip or a photo of a guy jumping off a roof, and I show it to like my best friend or my family. I say, you can't show anyone, but look at this. This is what we were doing yesterday. And they're like, that's so cool,
Yeah.
And,
wow, you were there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's great. I mean, it is hard work. It's long hours. It's a lot of labor.
Not everyone can do this job.
No.
Not everybody is made for it.
I think I wouldn't consider myself a baby in the industry anymore. And you see the next generation of people coming through, and you meet some guys who are still students, and they get a few days work experience. And you can see with some of them, it's like a complete shock to the system. They think it's very fast paced. It's like these 5-minute behind the scenes you see on TV of a film when they're promoting it. And you're like, no, it's long hours. You don't have much of a life because of it. It's a lot of graft. It can be a lot of waiting around. You know, there are a lot of setbacks in that respect to you personally.
Yes.
But the question is it what you want to do?
Right.
Is it something that you want to pursue? And I've had jobs that haven't been fantastic. I've had bad days on set. I've had times where I've come away feeling worn down and questioning, what am I doing? I don't have a life. All my friends are off enjoying it. But ultimately, as much as I may have an ultimately bad day and I whinge to my sister about it or whatever, I still pick myself up 24 hours later and I'm like, I'd still rather be doing this than anything else.
Well, it goes through your head. Let's see. Okay, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think I'm all right.
Yeah,
now.
exactly. Exactly. And I think that's important. But
that is so important. That is so important. I think, and because it is just not the fun stuff. And I come back to, I probably say this too much, maybe every show, but there's a personality type for this business, and then within this industry, there's personality types get split up. Yeah. You're an electrician. I'm a gaffer. You know what I mean? We like to work in the team.
Yeah.
The editor, maybe sound guy, he's more of a lone ranger.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that's their personality type.
Yeah.
So I think we pick out where we're supposed to be.
I think that is true, and that kind of departmentalizing, if you will, whether it's a personality type or whether it is just in terms of your craft and your discipline required in order to do whatever job. I mean, I'll give you an example. My mum might call me up and she'll say, she was a teacher, and she'll say, oh, do you remember so-and-so, the school nurse at my school? And I'm like, okay, yeah. And she's like, well, her niece wants to get into costume. I'm like, okay, all right. I can speak to her, but, it's like you're asking me, someone who wants to be a heart surgeon. It's completely different paths to get to where you want to go. It's different disciplines, training.
Right. I tell that to people that want to get in the business all the time. I go, I can't put you in this business. You have to put yourself in this business and deal with the issues that you have to deal with. You know, I've done it both ways. I've tried to put people in the business, and they're going, oh, but no, I'm going to take Tuesday off. I can't work this Tuesday. Well, somebody just gave you a 3-day job. You know what I mean? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You don't turn it down for Tuesday.
No, exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And they don't get it.
No.
You know, they think it's a regular 9-to-5 type of job, and it's not.
I get friends say that to me all the time. They're like, we haven't seen you in a while. You know, you kind of working 6-7 days a week. I'm like, well, I'll take a break when the phone stops ringing. When you're in business for yourself, when you're in this industry, and you've got to be, there's a degree of play that's required. You have to be willing to say, okay, fine, I'm kind of out the game for so many days straight.
Yeah.
You get a Wednesday off, which is not your usual because your friends have Saturday, Sunday off.
Right.
And then the next thing comes in, and that's just how it is. You know, there is, however you want to compare it, it's a marriage or whatever, you know, you're kind of married to that job, you're giving so much of yourself to it.
You're more than married to it. You can't, it's hard to divorce. You know what I mean? Whereas I was telling you to Greg Flores today, is being in this business, it's like prison. You know, you can tell everybody how you got in, but you can't tell anybody when you're going to get out.
No, exactly.
You know?
I've heard guys in the UK say something similar. They say, you don't retire from this industry, the industry retires you.
Oh, that's so true.
That's kind
so
of how
true.
it works.
Yeah,
Which is interesting. It is.
So tell me about you. So how did you get interested in it? When was that? You had your uncle, so that was a good introduction and stuff.
It was.
How did you, being in Liverpool now, and I'm trying hard not to go to any Beatles analogies here because I'm horrible for it. But for a kid from Liverpool, how does he break in?
That's quite interesting because obviously when I'm going back, well, I'm 33 now, so I'm going back to when I'm a teenager. I'm starting looking at college, which we have 2 years of college and then university.
Okay.
And I was like, it's almost like you're pulling your hair out. You're thinking, how do I make this work? Is this even a reality that I can make happen? Because you look to the ultimate like Hollywood and you think, how would I ever get into that?
That seems unattainable.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I mean, it does here in the U.S. too. When I was in Tacoma, how would anybody break into that industry?
Absolutely.
You know?
So, I mean, the thing is, the industry has, as I've said, in the last 10, 15 years, it has just skyrocketed in the UK. So going back then when I was a teenager, I was still, I mean, the industry was big, it was happening, but I had no idea how you'd ever get into it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I had no family really to advise, other than my mum's cousin over here, but he's a world away.
Yeah.
So theatre is obviously a big thing in the UK.
Sure.
And my sisters were both involved in a lot of drama and dance and things of that nature. And my eldest sister very much had a desire to pursue that as a career. And she went to a college where she was doing a lot of performing arts, if you will, but she was quite astute to kind of take on other things. So she got involved in a youth theatre, Manchester Youth Theatre, which was run in association with the National Youth Theatre. She'd done workshops with them. And they do summer productions for like 6 weeks of the summer. And she started doing stage management. And I was like, okay, cool. So she's looking at the other areas you can go into. So my mum said to me, she said, you're interested in the technical side of stuff. Why don't you interview and see if you can get involved in the lighting? And of course, I knew nothing about it. So I go into this interview.
No one does, right? No one starts out knowing anything about lighting.
No, exactly. But of course, all these people who are auditioning to be actors and whatever, they've been doing it since they were, you know, little dots. And
kids,
so they kind of come in quite confident. And I literally went in with, I think it was my art portfolio from school and my design and technology portfolio. And I said, look, I don't know anything about this, but I'm interested. And I said, I've brought in these to show when I'm interested in something, here's what I give to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I wasn't an exemplary student as a child. If I liked something, I gave it my all.
Yeah.
But if I didn't, I was useless.
You weren't interested in it. Yeah.
So I kind of went in and I kind of fluffed my way through this interview. And luckily, the director of the company, this guy, Bill Hopkins, he looked through it all and he was genuinely interested. But then at the end of it, he kind of said, you're Emma's younger brother, aren't you? And I said, yeah. And I think that was the kind of clinch. I genuinely believe it was my sister that got it, because I think they looked at me and said, we can see what he's working at, and we can also see if he works half as hard as his sister does as stage management, we'll give him a chance.
You sort of got in on the high heels of your sister then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I kind of didn't want to mess that up. And they were two of the most fantastic summers I've had, the seasons I did with them. We got to go in some really great theatres, the Lowry and the Royal Exchange in Manchester, which are very big prominent theatres, which at 16, 17 years old was a great opportunity.
Oh, that's huge.
So we're working with their technicians and we're learning, and I'm
So
literally...
you're actually on the board and they're showing you what they do? That's huge.
Yeah, it was a real good opportunity. Of course, then I go to university in London. I'm still thinking, is a degree going to serve me well? I don't know, is it relevant? Do I need it? But while I was in London, I was, I'd come home and...
And what year was this?
We're talking 2003, I started
2003,
university.
okay, thanks.
So, and I'd come home and I enjoyed my degree, but it was so theory-based. It was analytical, it was evaluating, and I was like, this isn't, I want to be making, I want to be doing, So I joined certain clubs at the university. I'd live in the edit suites, and stuff like that, and I met a few guys and we bounce a lot off each other. I was very lucky that a lecturer gave me a job there to show other students. He says, you're quite interested, you're here, we can't get round everyone. If someone's struggling with that, do you want to help them out? So me and a few other guys got that. But also I started looking elsewhere, and quite fortunately the New York Film Academy had opened a school in London as well as Los Angeles and New York. So I worked summers and I saved up money, and my mum was very good to help me with university side of it so I could use my money elsewhere. And in between semesters I was doing short courses there. And that was great because you're getting taught by industry professionals. And they would advise, and that kind of was the starting point for me that yes, you're learning a bit of everything, but I think that's good because people come in and say, I want to be a director or I want to be a DP.
Oh, they always say the same two, three things.
And then they realize all these other roles. And they start having their eyes open to it. And that was great because then you start falling in these circles of classmates and also professionals. And teachers would say, so-and-so's looking to accrue a really low-budget music promo. You may just be getting paid expenses because you're new, but if you're looking to get that experience,
you can get in.
And that was it. It was a step by kind of step. It was very slow and very, few and far between to begin with. But there was this kind of this hub at that time, and there was this kind of burst of that next generation coming in. And it was also, what was interesting was it was at that time where that transition from film to digital was kind of becoming industry standard. There was a lot of hype about Star Wars being shot on whatever
HD.
Exactly. And we were learning on Arri SR. I can't remember what it is. The Arri, we were 16
the 16, SR16, I think.
But literally within a year of starting doing them courses at NYFA, and I was still going back and putting my face in even when I'm back to my university semesters, you see a lot of them, they're running digital HD courses, learning digital cameras and stuff. And it was kind of interesting because then you could see this boom, as we've spoken about, with technology and advancements there, but also I could see this whole new generation coming through. And it was kind of quite exciting. There was also a lot happening in post. I remember Apple Final Cut Studio, Final Cut Pro, all that was becoming the norm.
It was changing radically around that time.
I think a lot of people were hyped about it. The Coen brothers were doing so much with it. Merch edited. What was it? English Patient on Avid won him an Oscar, and then he did Cold Mountain on Final Cut, an $80 million feature. That won him an Oscar too, I believe. And it was like this huge, and Hollywood embraced that. And so for a lot of people of my generation getting in, it's like, we're at the forefront of this. We're the first generation to learn of it. And
you so were. And really and just to follow through with that point, what I've seen in people about your age, like, they rode that. In other words, there were areas that now they could post it on YouTube. I mean, it wasn't maybe immediately right then, but in a few years they'd be able to take that little piece and put it on YouTube. And shoot something. And now they've got some distribution. And, of course, Facebook came along, which I think, for me, in this sense, brought the community together because now filmmakers had a place to talk with somebody where you didn't even know anybody in your neighborhood before.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we connected through LinkedIn. How would I have ever found out about you, been able to meet with you?
It's amazing.
It is. And that's what's kind of interesting about the technology is that it's allowed, I always say, like, internet generally. Your local markets become your national market, and your nationals become your international market. And the fact is, I could be engaging with someone, doing business with someone who's either up the street or the other side of the world, and that's it. It's you've got to take advantage of that's coming to you and being presented, and that's how people are. People are recruiting and crewing and networking through social media sites
all over,
and that's great because. As I said, how we have met otherwise. So.
That's it. And this is a classic example. Example. We're going to take another quick break here, James, and we will be right back.
Fantastic.
Burnie's workshop is fantastic. Burnie's workshop is awesome. Burnie's workshop is insightful.
Burnie, in one word, passionate maybe. You can tell he really cares a lot.
Burnie is a badass.
He's a great teacher. He has great stories, and I would recommend this to anyone. Not only someone like me who's starting day one, but you know, I feel that in any profession, as you sharpen your sword, it always gets sharper.
I think the best thing about this is the access to understanding how to run your business, how to actually be in this filmmaking industry and make money at it. Coming to this workshop, I think, is what actually gets you the tools to understand how to do that, how to get out there and sell yourself.
I thought that was really cool. I thought, he knows all the tricks in the book, and he knows how to show that to us and actually demonstrate it so we actually know what he's talking about.
I really like the hands-on experience. That's something that you don't find a lot. That's something you have to go on set a lot to just appreciate.
I know this is lighting seminar, but it's not only talk about lightings. He also share his business experience, personal experience, and guide us to what we should do, what kind of personality we should have in this business.
His stories, I think that kind of say everything in a few example stories that he gives out from time to time.
I would recommend this workshop to anybody who just brand into the industry, people who just don't know the swing of it. A lot of this stuff they don't teach you in film school.
I deal with a lot of freelancers every day, a lot of peers that I went to school with, a lot of professionals in the field, and they all need to take this class because it puts you on the next level, on the next playing field.
Burnie's a great guy. Burnie's really authentic. Like everything he learns, everything he teaches, the way he handles himself, the way he deals with other people, he's a one-of-a-kind guy. Someone I've never come across before in the industry, and someone I hope to emulate and hope that there are more people like him out there that can help.
Hey everybody, and we're back with Jim Nichols James. Right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry.
It's quite all right.
I want to make sure I'm not great on names anyway, so I want to
To be honest with you, it's probably the daftest name ever. It's the most confusing.
And what do they call you on set? What's your name?
Most people kind of call me Jimmy James. It's
Jimmy
just a
James.
nickname, like,
see, I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, but as I kind of briefly explained, people think it is a nickname when they first meet me, and then they don't realize it's actually my name, sort of thing. But yeah, that's always, you know, you're on the radios, you're on the comms, and people just kind of come over, Jimmy James, can you get this, or can you do that?
This?
And I don't mind, it's kind of fun, you know, it makes it less formal, which is great. So.
Well, everybody calls me Burnie because my last name is Burns.
Sure.
So that stuck like back in high school.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. No.
And it's Burnie. You don't know how many people have said to me, Burnie, what's your last name? And then I've got to go think, well, my real name is Craig Burns, but everybody calls me Burnie.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, names. I think you find the name that's right for you once you mature and get older, and people can place your personality a little better.
I kind of like it though. I mean, I kind of think it, just as I say, it makes it less formal.
Jimmy James, that's a name you remember.
Yeah.
That's easy, man.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
In fact, you could say James.
Yes.
Jimmy James.
Right, okay. It's like James Bond, you're saying there. So,
exactly.
Okay.
So, let me just start out with saying this, and this is not a political statement at all. It's my experience. From growing up in the United States, you really do not have, in my opinion, a very wide view of the world. Okay. And I'll compare it. Not like you would in Britain, where you're right next to Europe, and you're getting languages and cultures, and of course, Great Britain's history of being a colonial power and being in India and all that.
Yeah.
You have a much richer, I believe, view of the world than most Americans do.
Okay.
We are isolated.
Yeah.
And this country is so big, such an economic behemoth, that we have never really had to look outside of our shores. And unfortunately, I believe, when we have, it's mostly been in a military sense.
Okay.
Like we participated in World War I, World War II,
Sure.
We've been in Vietnam, we've been in other conflicts, and that is how most people view the outside world, as via sort of a military exercise that we're doing or something like that. Hence, I don't think that we get very set in our ways here, and we think that's the only way.
Okay, yeah.
And I think one of the examples, not of our point of view about outside or something, but when you're in, and this is even in Hollywood, when you're in Los Angeles, you're in Hollywood. Yeah. Hollywood has had 100 years to develop R&D in production.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they have a way of doing things, and that does change as times change and technology changes. It doesn't change real fast. But outside of Hollywood, you probably have a lot more quicker, faster adaptations for things that people are doing.
I guess so. I mean, it's very interesting what you're saying there. And if you're talking specifically about the industry, the thing is, because you said you are such this giant in terms of industry and innovation, and you've got so much within your own country. But of course, because you are at the forefront of it, there is, from my perspective on it, is when I look in the UK, it's always with consideration of trying to imitate or emulate, sort of what happens in the US.
Emulate the success, the successful
exactly,
scenario.
That's it. You kind of look to the top dog and you say, well, that's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to put in place the exact same thing on our own doorstep, which is cool. But at the same time, you're kind of asking, I mean, do we try and innovate or figure things out for ourselves? Yeah, I guess so. I mean, you make work what you've got at your disposal. I guess the only thing I can really kind of relate to is I was speaking to someone, they recommended that I go check out a couple of the stores that you have, to go look at equipment that you can buy, which is not so accessible in the UK.
Prevalent,
we don't have them kind of stores necessarily that you can walk in, and certainly not with the range of equipment at our disposal like you do here. So I went into one, Modern, and I got speaking to the owner of it, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, Modern's great.
And I just said to her, I was like, I've never seen so many different kinds of clamp or spigot or grip equipment in that respect. It's stuff that I've never come across. And she then was good enough to give me a tour. So she takes me out the back and she shows me how they're manufacturing every aspect.
Was that Anush you talked to?
I did speak to her first, and then she introduced me to another lady. I wish I could remember her name, but they took me round, and I was just like, this is incredible. Which is kind of cool, but my comparison then...
Well, you really don't get that anywhere else in the world than LA, when you can walk into a store and they've got, different types of clamps that do the same thing, right?
Exactly. So I looked at it, I said, if I look on the back of the lighting truck, what metalwork, what grip work we have, I said, it's about 10% of what I'm seeing in front of me here.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see, but of course, you say about adapting, you use what you've got at your disposal. Do you know what I mean? So if we don't have it...
We are the best adapters in the world.
Okay.
Our industry will take something and Applebox, for example, right? I mean, you take whatever you take, get the case over here, have them stand on the case. It looks like about a half apple,
Well, no, I mean, there is that. It's I always say that to friends about how I say the entire thing's an illusion. I mean, you're looking at something on the screen, but you don't realize there's something being held on by someone, there's someone at his feet, there's someone feeding something from over there. You don't realize how much of a circus it is behind the camera.
Right outside that frame.
To achieve what they need, in the frame.
Yes.
But also in terms of, I love hearing these stories from these old boys when they say, you see that there, do you know where that's from originally? That's originally a military, piece of equipment.
Right.
And they were looking to do this on such a film, some big film like Jaws or Star Wars, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. And some guy thought up, here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So they went out and they found something that was not at all relevant to entertainment in any way, and they found a way to bring it in and utilize it or adapt it so that we could use it. And I kind of love hearing these stories of that is from here, this is from that. And it's not at all, it's a very, I don't know how to describe it, it's such an eclectic mix of so many different ideas and designs and technology that has come to form what we now use. And we can, for people of my generation or younger, you look at it and think, this is all entertainment. This is all created specifically.
Been there. Yeah.
And it's not, you know, and I find it fascinating, an obvious one. And again, I hope I'm not wrong in this, what I was told, but it might be inaccurate. But someone told me about black wrap, black foil. Someone said that was actually used for tanks in World War II to try and so people could not the heat that was radiating off them or something like that. It may not be true. It's probably not the best example, but I was like, that's kind of cool. But it definitely opens up your mind and you realize...
And you realize that, things are adapted in this. An example of that, too, is Fisher Dolly.
Okay.
Fisher Dolly. They only hire, for their technicians, usually ex-jet mechanics because of the precision.
Okay.
And for the hydraulics.
Yeah.
That's why it's so smooth going up. I talked to one of them up there one time, and he goes, oh, yeah, he goes, working here. He goes, I work on this. If I'm like a 100th of a millimeter off, no one's going to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It'll still operate. You'll still get the same shot. So
Yeah.
this is easy because he's used to working on that scale.
That scale.
You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
And that's, I mean, that's where they service it from.
Yeah,
you know?
sure.
And adaptability too. Fisher started out as a mic boom.
Okay.
And then they adapted their technology for cameras too.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so all of those things come around, and people come in new that have other
all these different industries,
and all touch the same thing. But I want to specifically, what sort of my beginning point was, the difference between how the grip and electrics work in Great Britain and how they work here, because I know it's different now. And let me just start off this way. I know the grips are more of a camera support thing than anything else. Tell me about the electricians. Tell me how that. Tell me about both departments.
Well, let me answer firstly with what you've just said there. For us grips, the grip department, I had a grip describe it to me the simplest way possible, which is they deal with everything below the camera. So if it's going on a tripod, if it's going on a track and dolly, however the camera is, if it's getting rigged on some camera mount, shoulder mount, whatever, they deal with that. That is what the grips deal with. In the lighting department in the UK, we have, it's not like here where you have two departments, you have lighting and grip. We deal with not just the power and the distribution of all that and then rigging the lamps as well. We also deal with all the flags and frames and textiles.
So you're doing the cutting, the diffusing.
Yeah, the craft side of shaping and modeling the light as well. So we kind of come in, we'll run out the cable, we'll get the stands, get the light on it, blast that through. Okay, now let's start looking at what it's doing. Let's start placing that lamp and let's start, you know, putting a chop here. Let's start taking a bit off there. So that's what we're doing. So we're kind of, on a standard job, you might have your lighting truck. It's about 35, 40 foot long. You've got all the lights and the stands and distro on it. And then you've got your generator, which you'll also have with a lot of the heavier distribution, you know, for 150 amp or 400 amp cable. But then you'll also have your frames, your 8x8s, your 12x12s, and then all these crates, these buckets of all your textiles that you use, your grids, your silks, things of that nature. So we're kind of doing both, if you will, whereas over here, I mean, that is the first thing people say to me is...
That's the line that separates.
Which do you want to go into? And I'm like, well, I guess I'm a lighting technician first and foremost, I'm electric, but the fact that that is a question, you know, which area are you going with it? And we've always been aware of that in the UK, that it's two different departments.
Two different things,
But yeah, it's just interesting that that's how it works. You know?
And here, not being union and not being in the, I don't know, the Hollywood, LA industry, you know, that we're gripticians. That's how we describe ourselves on set. Like a lot of times, like say my key grip, I'll be the gaffer, I'll hire him as a key grip. You know, it's noted that he will have sort of the final say on how we execute what our grippage is going to be. You know, but I may ask him to go hook up an M18 too. You know what I mean, and expect him to know that. You know,
well,
how to do it.
I had the good fortune of being invited to come and attend a commercial that's being shot the other day in Hollywood. So I go there and I got to meet the gaffer and I got to meet the grip. And then because it was only a very small, it was just headshots of models. So they're not doing a great amount. They've got two M18s blasting into the background. They've got a breeze light overhead, and then they're just putting a silk, and it's real soft and beautiful. But they had one guy who they called a swing. So he would help the gaffer if it was...
He would go back and forth.
And then he'd go and help the you know, for the 8x8, help the grip, take it up and change the position, or put a 4x4 in as an intermediate frame. So he was swinging between the two, if you will, sort of. And I can see how that works. You know, for what was a non-union job, a very small, low-key job, didn't require the 5 or 6 team, you know, sort of.
And they probably brought one guy out with a truck, or got one truck with everything on it.
So I can see how that works. And, you know, I work on a lot of similar sort of commercials in the UK, where it is just very small. It's in a very small, almost like a photography studio. And it doesn't warrant having all these different people. So you kind of got 2 men doing the job, you know, sort of thing, and that's it. And yeah, you might be running around setting up some lights and running out the cable, and then all of a sudden your cameraman's like, right, we need to get a frame in here, we need to get a flag on there, and you're jumping straight over and doing that, you know. So so I get it, and I see how that works. But
and I see the efficiencies of having one department do both those things, and it's probably because it's been most of my experience.
Sure, yeah.
You know, as in the grip dishing world.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, it's there, and they're locked in. That is not going to change in Hollywood.
I would say the only, for us, you know, yes, sometimes you get the runaround. You've got a lot going on some days. Yeah. And the problem I think we have is that if we've got a 5-man team in lighting, is all of a sudden when we've got all the lights run out, we've got all the cable run out, and they're all up ready and burning. And then they're saying, right, we need to start getting frames in. You start getting an 8x8 or a 12x12 outside, you start losing manpower rapidly. Because yes, we get our rigger to help assist, secure it, anchor it down, you put the relevant stage weights, but you also, just from a health and safety standpoint, you have to be seen to be doing so. So you've got 2 men standing on either side of this frame. Now, if you've got a 5-man team, that's half your team gone straight away. You know, so
your team, half your team is now a sandbag.
Yes, yeah. And that often presents a problem for us because you got the gaffer. They say, right, we need another one over here, and he says, right, but that's going to take a little longer because I've only got 2 other guys with me now while they're stood on that.
Yeah.
You see, whoever's in charge, the first AD, has a great degree of responsibility with health and safety, and they kind of look at it and they can see and they say, we'll just have to get them to leave it. You see, right, but it goes over, you know.
That's much bigger problem than not having the second one.
And it is, unfortunately, it's that open conversation. You make the relevant people aware, but it does present its problems in a sense. And sometimes as well, you know, there isn't an endless pool of money with budgets. They go and they say, I need 3 extra guys.
Right.
A line producer, production manager may come on set and say, why have we got these guys standing around? But at the same time, as soon as something's happening and we're busy, they're eaten up very quickly. Do you know? And you say they're needed. It's needed. Do you know what I mean? But again, it's a big cost.
Well, you're getting into my world now as a gaffer and equipment owner, where I'm a lot of times negotiating the crew, negotiating their rates, in just as a course of business, and how many people we use and what we have to do.
Sure.
This is a conversation I have almost on every job.
Yes.
And I because of my position, I've had to take a tougher line, like tell them, if we can't safely fly something, I'm going to pull it down. It's not a question. It's not anybody else's decision. It's mine. You know, and you know that.
I've witnessed plenty of gaffers in the UK have the same conversations and have to make that same call. You know, and you understand it. You know, not to speak negatively or not to backtrack, but we spoke before about you know, positions and stuff like that.
Sure.
And we do love what we do, but at the same time, you know, you don't get into this unless you love it. But not at the expense of people getting injured or anyone doing anything that's detrimental. So it's a very fine line, you know, and it's a very political one, and
very much
you don't want to be seen as someone who's being difficult or not forward thinking, but sometimes you have to make them tough calls.
You don't want to be the squeaky wheel, but sometimes you got to squeak. You know,
exactly.
And I don't know. Are you familiar with Sarah Jones?
No.
Okay, Sarah Jones was a camera AC over here that was killed on the railroad tracks.
Yes, I am aware. Yes,
that has brought our safety on set consciousness up 200-300% from where it was.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think is so important that I don't like to let it go. You know what I mean? You have to be safe all the time, and I know you guys have to over there. It's something that is our responsibility to talk. And now we're getting into some real juicy stuff when we got about 1 minute left in the show here. So
no, sorry, I wasn't aware. I was aware of the slates for Sarah, and it did become as talked about in the UK as I imagine it was here. But
that's great.
Yeah, it is. It's a difficult thing, but you know, it's with the best intentions that you make them calls.
And I'll tell you, you just look back at that production company that was responsible for her death.
Sure.
Look what happened to those individuals. Now, for me, I would have had a heavier sentence than what they got.
Sure.
That's for sure. The fact that they were convicted was very important because it had actually never happened in the movie industry
Oh, really?
before.
Okay.
Yes. And on that level, they were convicted. But you want trouble? Have somebody, as a producer, you want trouble? Have someone get injured on set.
Yeah, it's not worth thinking about.
And especially in California.
Okay.
This place is loaded with laws about that, you know, so it's very tough. James, what a pleasure. And for having met you 10 minutes before we sat down here, it looks like we had a lot to talk about.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Me too. Me too. If you want, give some information about yourself on contact or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can
just give me your social media, your email, phone number, whatever you want to give.
I'm on LinkedIn. The name Jim Nicholas James, you should find me on there. I got my email and everything. You'll find all my details that are relevant. It's jimmynjames@hotmail.com. But yeah, anyone who wants to get in touch, wants to open up the conversation, I very much love talking to you. I'd welcome it. So thank you, and thank you to you for allowing
and then this guy knows his stuff. So, so if you get a chance to talk to him, or if you come back too, and you've got a card, then hey, let's get you on set.
Yeah, I'd love that. That'd be amazing. Thank you so much, Burnie.
So great.
I really appreciate it.
And we'll see you next week on Burnie's Applebox. Cut. That's a wrap.